So welcome. But so which means if we've got good attendance, I really am expecting and hoping for this to be a facilitated this to be a facilitated session. I know Vitz called me a lecturer, but I don't want to be a lecturer. I want this to be a discussion, especially in a class like ER. I really don't want this to be I want this to be a conversation. So ask questions, stop me, put your hand up. If I'm sharing my screen, I might not always see your hand, so just shout at me. Yeah. And I am going to make jokes. They might be a little bit off color sometimes. If you get offended, say, hey, Janine, that was too off color. Yeah, let me know. But that's kind of the whole point of ER, is that this is a slightly political course. And we are allowed to say things that are maybe a little bit politically incorrect here, and we want to be able to say the difficult things in this course because we need to be able to speak openly in this course. So everybody here has to be able to say the difficult things, because if we can't say them here, then we can't say them out there. And so this should be a safe place for us to be allowed to say the difficult things and to ask the difficult questions. Cool. Any questions so far? Any questions, any comments, anything else so far? Something in the chat? Nothing in the chat, but welcome to Birds Plus. Yes, nice. Okay, cool. Maybe, oh, there we go. Maybe ask for recording of the online sessions. I didn't even see that before I said I'm going to record. So absolutely, Dilly, there we go. We're done. Cool. Anything else, guys? Any other questions, comments, queries?
Hi, Janine. Thank you so much for that intro. May I please ask around the content? Maybe I've missed this in the chat that's on Ulwazi at the moment. I noticed some things were uploaded yesterday, right? But there are some items, I don't know if it's like theme one that seem like they're from 2023. Are you fine and happy that the content that sits here is all up to date, and I don't know if we should be expecting something else, or everything that's there is fine?
No, it should be fine. It should all be fine. If I see that something's outdated from a legal perspective, I will change it and I'll update it as we go. But the stuff relatively should stay the same. There have been some changes just recently to the law. Like when I say just recently, I mean like last week. I haven't had a chance to even look at those changes yet. I'm going to take a look at them. And then I will send that to Previn and to Dr. Previn and to I actually have to make a video of it for myself, for my own. I want to put that on my own popcorn page, and for my own clients anyway. So those changes I will let you know about. But so far from what I've seen from the assignment, you should be okay for your assignment. And the stuff that we're discussing, it's good. So I think we're good.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much.
Haley?
I just wanted to ask about the textbook. Do we need to get the textbook or?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay.
No, anything so I haven't spoken to Dr. Previn yet about what he's going to put in the exam. I chatted to him today and said, can we get on a call? And he's like, I need you to come to my office. I don't think he understands. Sorry about that. That's one drawback of online lessons, is that you get to hear my dogs. Yeah, that's one. I don't think he understands what my life is like. So I'm going to convince him that I need to have I don't think I come into Wits at 1 o'clock on Friday. I have an autistic child that needs to be fetched at that time. But I will have a conversation with him. Yeah, so I just want to check with him what the exam is going to look like. But I know that last year everything that we put in the exam came out of the slides, and there's enough information in the slides for us to be able to get the exam. That's for us to be able to create a good enough exam. So I honestly don't think that you're going to need a textbook. Cool. Any other questions before we go? Cool. Okay. So what we're going to do today, I'd like to try and keep these. I know that we're supposed to go from 7:30 till 8, and then there's like a tight afterwards. I would like to try and keep these, because we're online, sort of from 5:30 to 7:30, because I know you guys have families. And then I will stick around afterwards for anyone who's got private questions. And I'm also happy for you guys to, I know that you guys are all working, and that's, so I'm also happy for you to set up private meetings with me, consultations with me during the week, to say, Janine, can I set up 20 minutes with you on a call at 4:00 on Wednesday, or whatever the case may be. So I'm happy to have private consultation times. I just want to open the slide so that you can see my go. There we go. So there's my details. So I'm very happy for you to set up a Teams meeting with me. You've got my phone number. It's on the group. There's my phone number there if you need it. There's my email address. I do have a Wits email address, but honestly, I would rather use this one. I haven't even opened my Wits email address. Last year, I needed to have a Wits email address in order to get into Ulwazi. This year, they've managed to get me into Ulwazi without it, so it's very unlikely I'm going to use my Wits email address. So if you want to get hold of me, rather get hold of me on Popcorn People. And yeah, so Popcorn People or WhatsApp, the best way to get hold of me. Those are the best ways to get hold of me. And yeah, and then if you do want to contact me, send me a WhatsApp, and then and if it's a longer conversation that we need to have that's not over WhatsApp, we can set up a Teams meeting, a 20-minute Teams meeting after hours at 4:00 or whatever, or early in the morning, or whatever the case may be, or during the day if we really need to at a lunchtime, or whatever the case is. Okay. Cool. Any questions or anything about that? Or can we go? All right, so what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to quickly take you through the structure of the course. What are the topics we're going to go through on the course? Then I'm going to take you through some sort of theories of industrial relations, and then I'm going to take you through like what is employee relations. So what is industrial relations, and then what is employee relations? And that's pretty much the structure. That's pretty much lecture 1 and lecture 2. And then I'll take you through the assignments if we have time, and what we're looking for in the assignments. Cool. Okay. All right. So the structure of the course will be assessed through 1 assignment and 1 test equivalent. Last year we did two assignments, an assignment and then a short assignment, but it looks like we're going to be doing a test this year. I just want to check with Dr. Kervin what he wants to do with that test, but for now it's 1 assignment and 1 short test, and then 1 big exam. The details of the assignment and the test will be discussed in class, and then the breakdown of the marks as follows. Assignment is 40%. So the assignment and the small test are, so the big assignment is 40%, and then the exam is 60%. So 20% will be the mini assignment or the small test, and 40% is the November exam. Okay, so the big assignment that you're going to do that we'll go through today is 40%, and then the exam will be the mini test or the mini assignment, and then the November exam is 40%. Make sense to everyone so far? Any questions? Okay. Cool. All right. So the first theme that we're going to go through is the employment relations system. So what is the system of employment relations? So how do employment relations work together? And so what we're going to look at here is really sort of how does employment relations work? So nothing works in isolation. We can't just have an employment relation, like an employee relationship that works in isolation. And the employment relationship is governed by the legal framework, the socio-political framework, the environmental framework. It's governed by a whole bunch of frameworks, and we're going to discuss that whole system. and all the role players that make it up. We're also going to discuss various approaches to understanding that employee relation system. So what we're going to look at tonight is the unitarist, the pluralist, and the radical perspectives of employee relations. So what are different approaches to how different people have approached the employment relationship over the years? Okay, and then we're going to look at socioeconomic factors that influence the dynamics between labor and management. Okay, so that's theme 1, and that we'll discuss in lecture 1 and lecture 2. So that's pretty much what we're going to cover tonight. Any questions so far? Remember, I might not see your hand, so just shout at me. Okay, no shouting, which means we're probably okay to move on. Okay, so what is the industrial relations system? So the role players are obviously the state, the employers, the employees, customers, and consumers. That's kind of the role players within the industrial relations system that we're going to be discussing. Okay, then theme 2 is the different theories within employment relations. So in this section, we're going to look at the various theories of the types of justice. So what kinds of justice is there in terms of employment relations? And in this section, we're going to look at distributive justice, interpersonal justice, and procedural justice. So here we're going to look at what actually is justice, what is fairness, okay? And we're going to look at the importance of these concepts in understanding the employer-employee relationship and various types of organizational behavior. So, and remember, often within the employer-employee relationship, it's often about perception. Okay, so an employer might think that he's being fair, but if the employee doesn't perceive something to be fair, then that action is not necessarily fair, even though it is fair, the outcome doesn't look like it's fair. So we're going to look at perceptions of justice. We're not going to just look at justice. We're going to look at perceptions of justice as well, and what is the result of that on employee. Sorry, the choir is singing again. Okay, so that will be theme 2. So that's what we're going to look at next week. We just need to chat about next week and just make sure that we fit everything in, because next week is a holiday. So I just want to look at the times and when the exam is, to decide if we're either going to miss next week, or if we're going to split the lectures over time, or if we're going to meet on Tuesday nights. We just need to make some decisions. But we can discuss that at the end of the evening. Okay, so that's what we'll look at next week, or in lecture 2. Okay. Then in theme 3, we're going to look at employment relations at an organizational level. And in this theme, we're looking at different selection systems and like actual procedures around collective bargaining, dismissal. So this is like the nuts and bolts of employee relations. So this is, most of you will have, especially those of you who are already working, we're going to look at like actual dismissal and grievance procedures, collective bargaining, strike action. So this is really like the nuts and bolts of employee relations. This is not like theoretical. This is now actually when we get into practice, like what is the actual stuff that makes this work? Okay. So based on all the theoretical stuff that we will have discussed in theme 1 and theme 2, now how does it actually come into practice? Okay. Everyone happy so far? Cool. So this is just like a model of fairness and procedural justice that we're going to look at over time. This is one of the models that we're going to look at. So like how are hiring decisions made? How do we use justice in order to, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail now, it's just going to confuse you, but this is one of the models that we're going to use, and by the end of this course, you'll know this model off by heart, but this is one of the models that we're going to look at in order to be able to understand fairness and justice. Okay, so we will go through this in time. Okay. Then in theme 4, we're going to look at the psychological contract. Okay. So now we've looked at, so we're going to start at what actually is RR and ER. So what do they mean? Then theme 2, we're looking at the different theories around it. Theme 3, we're looking at the nuts and bolts. So what does it look like in practice? And then in theme 4, we're looking at what does this mean from a psychological perspective? So how does this work psychologically? And so here we're starting to look at, so remember the difference between a human resource practitioner and an industrial psychologist is that a human resource practitioner goes in and says, this is how we do a disciplinary hearing. This is the process. An industrial psychologist said, yes, that's the process, but how can we do this in a way that still makes people feel good about it? What is the psychological impact of this? What is going to be the impact on the person's behavior? How is this going to create behavior change? And so that's where we start to get that's where we start to talk about the psychological contract and the impact of the psychology on the employment relations. So yes, I can go in and just be an RR practitioner, and I can just go and follow the rules and implement the policy. But if I can implement the policy in such a way that I can create actual behavioral change, then I'm starting to act like an industrial psychologist. Is that starting to make sense? Can we understand why understanding the psychological impact of what I'm doing makes a difference? Yes, no, maybe? Somebody say something. Are you also there?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, you can't see your thumbs up. Yes, it makes
Oh,
sense.
are you all thumbs upping? Good. I can't see your
You're
thumbs up. I
welcome.
need voices, otherwise I'm going to die. Okay, excellent. Okay, and then we're going to, during that one, we're going to go through this model. Okay, so we're going to go through this model. So we're going to go through understanding contextual backgrounds. And we're going to go through socioeconomic background, age, gender, education, the level of the organization. We're going to look into organizational context, the size of the organization, the business strategy, whether we recognize unions. Then we're going to go through HR policies and practices. We're going to go through employment relations. We're going to go through all of this stuff. Okay. We're going to look at reciprocal promises and the obligations of the organization. So even today, I went to a mine and I sat with a whole lot of miners and I spoke about roles and responsibilities and rights and responsibilities. So the psychological contract isn't only at a corporate level where we're talking about corporate people. We're talking about the psychological contract is made at any level of employee, in any organization, there's a psychological contract. And these guys are saying, but my manager is responsible for my health. Like I'm working with chemicals and they promised me PPE and they haven't given me PPE. So like they feel like their manager has broken the psychological contract and they don't feel like their manager cares for their health. And I can promise you, all we need to do for those guys is go out and buy 30 overalls, 30 pairs of goggles and 30 face masks. And I can promise you that tiny investment that's going to cost $3,000 maybe is going to change the behavior of those guys. And it's going to be a tiny investment of $3-4 grand, and we're going to change the behavior of that workforce because all of a sudden they're going to feel cared for. And that's the kind of thing that you got to understand. Like if you come in and you just listen to your staff, if you just listen to them and understand them, that's what your psychological contract is about. It's about just understanding that behavior. And then that's what we're talking about here. You're going to have organizational commitment, you're going to have work satisfaction, you're going to have work-life balance. And that means people are going to have an intention to stay, you're going to have job performance, etc. Okay, so that's the course so far. I'm going to go out of here and open up so that I can just see you guys. Any questions so far on the course itself and what we're going to cover in the course itself?
No, not on my side.
Cool. I've opened up so now I can see your thumbs up. Does it sound like something exciting? Does it sound like something we want to be doing?
It does sound exciting.
Yeah,
Am I
no,
talking too
we can hear
fast?
you.
Are you
everything's-
guys happy with my pace?
Everything is good. Well, for me anyway. Can I just ask? I see in the there's a slide or a file that says lecture 12, right? I don't know, are we going to do altogether 12 lectures or like the themes 12 altogether? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so remember every night we're going to go through, because we Wits Plus, so every night we go through 2 lectures. So tonight we're going to go through lecture 1 and lecture 2.
Okay, cool.
And there's
All good.
6 weeks. So we'll go through lecture 1 and lecture 2 next week, or whatever, lecture 3 and lecture 4. That's why I just want to decide what we're going to do next week, and work out when the exam is. So do you guys know when your exams start, so that we can decide if we can miss a week and still make it, or do we need to make up that lecture
I think
Exam
yours
season
is on the
starts on the
6th.
on
I'm
the
not
6th of
mistaken.
November?
No,
Yeah.
no,
Is
it's
it not that? Is what, the 11th? There's something on the 6th.
It's
Let me
not
check.
psych. Psych is sitting somewhere towards the, if I'm not mistaken, either mid or end. I just need to double check that what I posted on our WhatsApp messages, just making a full on. Let me just see what I said. But we writing.
We're
Does somebody
writing
have
on
a
the
response?
11th of November.
On the 11th, yes, on the 11th
Yeah,
of
Yeah,
November.
unless
yours
it
is the
changes.
11th.
You're
It's
writing
the
psych on
11th.
the 11th of November.
Yeah,
Yes. No,
employment relations.
exam starts on the 2nd of November. The exam period.
Yeah.
I should see this here. Okay, so I've got our last lecture on the 24th, and that takes us to 6. Oh, no, that's September. Okay, that's September 1. Why won't it just stay high? Okay, 1, 2. No, this is 3. Okay, but the 24th is next week. That's a holiday. So this is, let's say this is 2. Just stay high for me.
Hi.
3.
But
3. 4. 5. 6. Okay, so we
You
should
can
be
do the
okay
29th,
if we
yeah.
finish on the 29th. We should be okay. Okay, so we don't have to meet next week then. So we can take next week off because it's a public holiday, and we can still finish on the 29th. So if we start on the 2nd, which is a Monday, are you guys still okay to finish on the 29th? Which means we don't have an exam prep one. It means we don't have an exam prep lecture, but I'm happy to do an exam prep lecture. Look, that last one, I'm happy to do an exam prep lecture like on Saturday the 1st of November or something like that. Or even if you're only writing, when did you say you're writing on the 11th? I'm happy to do an exam prep lecture on the 5th anyway. And even though you're in the middle of exams, you can come to the exam prep lecture on the 5th and make that an extra one. You do that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Okay. All right, cool. So we'll see. We can decide closer to the time, but there's enough lessons. In fact, I think there's only 11 lectures, and the 12th lecture is for the 12th lecture is for exam prep. But let's go through it and see. Okay. I just want to open okay, let's go through the assignment quickly. You're not going to understand the assignments immediately, but that's okay.
I'm sorry, apologies. A silly question while you're looking this up. Does ER stand for employee relations, employer, or employment? Because I'm seeing like 3 versions everywhere I'm looking.
I don't think it matters. It's
Cool.
probably employment relations.
Employment. Okay, sure.
Okay. You're going to find that I am not one of those people that pays much attention to detail. Okay. Let's just open this properly. Okay. Okay. Right, so you can see, so your assignment is due on the 9th of October at 23:59. Yes, I know. At 23:59. Okay, which means that if you hand it in at 23:59 and 33 seconds, it's going to be late. Sorry, I've got fraud on one of my credit cards, and I stopped my credit card, and now Adobe keeps telling me that I've got a billing issue, and it's annoying me. Okay, so let me just show you this assignment. Okay, so this is the first assignment that's due on the 9th of October. Okay, so for this assignment, the task is to analyze a case study that requires you to apply your theoretical knowledge to a real-world South African context, focusing on a major parastatal, a topic that's often in the news and deeply relevant to our country's employment relations landscape. Examine the following case of a corporate restructuring at South African Airways. You will assess the provided scenarios through three key analytical lenses: legal, theoretical, and empirical. Okay, so when I say legal, what do I mean by that? I want you to use the law, right? So I want you to, so you're gonna take the case and you're gonna look at it from a legal perspective. Okay, so you're gonna say, what does the law say about this matter? Okay, so you're going to be given three scenarios, and each scenario has to be looked at from these three perspectives. So in other words, I'm going to get 9 paragraphs from you. Does that make sense so far? So there's as we go through it, you're going to get it. So you're going to see. So look here. There's 3 examples, and each example has to be looked at through 3 lenses. So this one, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, what does the law say about this? What does the theory say about this? And then what does the empirical evidence say about this? Okay, I'm going to explain to you what each of those things mean. Okay, so I'm going to get an introduction, a conclusion, and in between that, I'm going to have 9 paragraphs. So essentially, I'm going to have 11 paragraphs. Each essay is going to have 11 paragraphs. I mean, I'm happy for there to be more paragraphs, but at least 11 paragraphs. Okay. I'm treating you like kids, but sometimes I like to make things as simple as possible. Okay, so when I say I want you to look at the example from a legal perspective, I want you to say, what does the law say about this example? Okay, so let's go through the example, and then we can make it easier for you to understand. So over the past decade, South African Airways has faced a significant financial challenges, leading to numerous attempts at organizational restructuring, including business rescue. These processes have profound impact on its workforce, resulting in widespread retrenchment. Can you just put yourself on mute? I hate my voice. Thank you. Resulting in widespread retrenchments and changes to employee contracts and working conditions. Below are 3 alleged scenarios that have arisen during these periods of restructuring. Okay, so over the last 10 years, South African Airways has had massive financial challenges, and we've done some restructuring, and there's been some business rescue, and so now there's been an impact on its workforce, and some people have been retrenched, and some people have had changes to their contracts and working conditions, and here are 3 things that have happened. Okay, we're all together. Okay, so example 1, there was a recent round of retrenchments, and it was alleged that SAA management failed to engage in meaningful consultation with a recognized trade union, and instead presented them with final decision on job cuts. The union argued that this violated the principle of good faith bargaining. Okay, so that was example 1. Now you need to go and find out, what does the law say about that? Okay, because that's the first thing. What does the law say about this? Okay. Because that's the first lens you're going to look at it through. Okay. Then you're going to go and look at your theory. So by the 9th of October, you would have learned theory. So you're going to go look at the theory. We're going to look at the different types of justice: empirical justice, procedural justice. I mean, not empirical justice. You can look at distributive justice, procedural justice, distributive justice, all of those different things. And you're going to go look at those types of things. And you're going to say, what does the theory say about what they should have done here? Then you're going to go look at empirical studies. And you're going to say, what does the research say about what they should have done here? What have other parastatals, what have other companies done in this case? What other case law is out there in what they should have done here? So legal is what does the law say? Theoretical is what does the theory say? And empirical is what research is out there, what case studies are out there. Okay, and you're going to use those 3 lenses. In fact, I want 12 paragraphs because then I want you to draw your own conclusion. So each case study has to have its own, has to have 4 paragraphs, okay? Because then you're going to draw your own conclusion and say, what should they have done? Based on the legal lens, the theoretical lens, and the empirical lens, what should they have done? Did they do the right or the wrong thing? Based on my own opinion. Okay. This is not college, this is
Jenny?
university, this is not first year, this is third year. So now based on my own opinion, what should they have done? And I'm
Jenny?
going to base my own opinion on those 3 things that I've just looked at. Does that make sense?
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Can I hear you or are you talking on the phone?
No, I'm talking to you.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, with the empirical data,
Yeah.
okay, so when we're discussing all of these things, the conclusion is the one where we put in our recommendation. The other 4 paragraphs per, is it 3 or 4? But the
No,
other,
so each one you'll create your own conclusion on each one because they're
okay.
3 completely different case studies. And then you'll just say, so your introduction is going to be something like, in this essay, I'm going to look at 3 case studies from the SAA. And then the last one, you're going to say, in this essay, I looked at 3 case studies from SAA. So that's basically your introduction and conclusion. But then your paragraphs in between will be case study 1, this is what happened. Case study 2, this is what happened. Case study 3, this is what happened.
Okay, so the coherency should be per case study, how we
Yeah.
flow it, not merge it.
Yeah. I would like to see per case study.
Okay, and then sorry, the initial question was with the empirical data. Do you want us to be putting in statistics and any annexes that we find? Is that something that you finicky about, or as long as we tell you about it in the essay?
No, as long as you tell me about it in the essay and you reference properly.
All right, and the structure is as you need.
Structure's up to you. I don't mind. So I like to be taken through your thought process. So if you want to put, I'm not fussy in this kind of essay, because of the way this essay asks questions. I'm not fussy if you want to put subtitles and that sort of thing. I won't be fussy about that kind of thing. I know that's not like typical of an essay, but because of the way that this essay is structured, the question is structured, I'm not fussy about that. So if you want to put those in so that I can see your thought process, that's cool. I'm happy, like I like to be taken through your thought process. And I like you to make it easy for me to see how you're thinking. The harder you make it for me to see how you're thinking and what you're thinking, the harder it is for me to mark it. Remember, I'm going to be marking 40 of the same thing. So the easier you make it for me to see what you're thinking and how you got there, the easier it is for me to mark it. So if I can see, oh, she thought this, she thought this, she thought that, cool, she's got it, that's 80%. Like, cool. Like easier it is for me to see that you've answered the whole question, you've got there, like that makes it easier for me to see it. Then, like, yeah. you do get marks for referencing as well. So please make sure that you've referenced within your paper and that you've got a reference list at the end of your paper. Not a bibliography, a reference list. Do we know the difference? We're in third year. Please tell me you know the difference between a reference list and a bibliography. The difference between a reference list and a bibliography is that your reference list is a list of the references that you've referred to within your paper. So please make sure that you are actually referencing within your paper. But this is third year. I can't be having this conversation at the third year level. Okay, cool. Any other questions about the assignments?
Yeah, sorry, I have one question.
No, please, ask questions now. I'm telling you now, you're the one asking them, but everyone is thinking them. You're just the only one who's got the balls to ask. Go.
Well, look at that. They made us steal. So what I want to know is, as a fellow third year who's doing third year for the first time, you see, with the hope not to do it again. Just please say again the difference between what did you say?
Okay, so a bibliography. So when we were in school, we used to write bibliographies. And a bibliography was any books that I read that helped me to get to my answers. A reference list is a list of all the references that I referred to in my paper. So a reference list is, I wonder if I've got a paper here that I don't think I do. But a reference list is, what I'm going to say is like, so let me open a thing here. Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Right, so let's say I want to, so I'm going to say the sky is blue. Now, I can't just say the sky is blue because I have to, even though I know it's blue, Wits won't allow me to just say the sky is blue. It doesn't like it. If Wits doesn't like it, then I just know that the sky is blue. So now somebody has to have told me that the sky is blue. So who told me that the sky is blue? Dos Santos 2025 told me that the sky was blue. And then I can carry on writing whatever I want to write. Then I go down to the end of my essay and in my reference list. Okay, then I say I referred to Dos Santos 2025, and then I put here Dos Santos JM 2025. And where did I read that? I read that in her book, Colors of the World. And it was published by Penguin. Oh, for God's sake. Penguin in Johannesburg. Okay. So I referred to Dos Santos over there, and then I wrote it over there. So that's my references. Because I referred to it over there, then this is my list of all the things I referred to in my paper. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. But a bibliography is what I wrote in primary school, where I could just write a whole lot of nonsense, yeah, of any book that I picked up that I might have read when I was little, like that I might have read in reference to putting this paper together. Okay.
Awesome.
But
You would have
remember, like
referred
anything that you have referred to has to be put there, and you want to refer to as many, like you want to make sure that any fact that you have there, that you referred to it somehow. Okay, that you found that out somehow. You can't just know stuff. Like you have to, like you're not allowed to just know stuff. That's like academia doesn't like it if you just know stuff. We have to be empty vessels, and then the stuff we know has to have come from somewhere. Cool. Any other questions about the assignment?
Yes, Janine, the
Yes,
assignment is
yes,
due on the 9th, and the 9th is a Thursday.
yes.
Would it be premature to say, can we move that to the 10th? I know usually the dates are based on full-time scholars.
Let me tell you that it is very likely that, so I don't keep that thing open or closed on Ulazi. It opens and closes by itself. I will find out if I can try and open it, but it's very likely that I will only start marking on Friday or like the 11th. I will most likely only start marking on the 11th, but I think it stays open for a couple of hours afterwards. So yeah, you can probably get it out on the 11th. But let me check with Enid how long it stays open, and then I'll come back to you. So
Thank you.
I'll come back to you in the group. I'll come back to you in the group on that. But I think I do think it stays open. I'm getting confused with I lectured for Chartwell as well, and one of them closes automatically and the other one stays open, and you have to ask for an extension. So I just want to see which one closes automatically. But yeah, I will. So from my side, it doesn't matter, but I just want to check if Uluwazi closes automatically. And if it doesn't, I will only start marking on the 11th anyway. But let me just find out from Enid if I can keep it open till the 10th. Cool. Any other questions about the assignments? Okay, so do you understand what you have to do? I know that it's too early to have started to discuss the assignment, but I also know that there are who have mateys and who have CNs in this group who want to have started working on the assignments already. So that's why I've discussed it. So, but I know there are going to be more questions when you guys start working on it. So I'm happy to take those questions when we get them. So, cool. Right, it's 18:22. Let's take an 8-minute break, and then we will get onto the everyone go have a wee. If you smoke, go have a half a cigarette, and we'll get back at 6:30. Cool. And then we'll start on the theory. Thanks, everyone. Cool. See you now. Everyone back? Can I get a couple of thumbs ups?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. So
Awesome,
with
thank
2
you.
thumbs up from the 2 DMs and 1 MM. There are lots of people with M's. There's 3 MMs, 2 DMs, 1 IM, 4 MMs. Goodness gracious. Right. Okay, let's give it 2 more minutes, then we can start. Are you asking, Dilly, are you asking for your assignment to be due on Sunday the 12th? No, dude, because I need to mark. I too have a full-time job.
No. It's called trying your luck. Sorry, but what did you guys settle on? Because that's exactly when I lost my reception.
No, so what I'll do is, so I mean, you probably can get is what I'll do is I'll ask Enid, let me find out from Enid how long it stays open after it's after the assignment is closed. I don't know how long it stays open. And then I'll let you know. But we can probably have it, let's compromise probably on like the 11th, because I'll probably only start marking them on like the evening of the 11th. Usually what I do on a Saturday night is my friend's a teacher and she has marking all the time. So usually what I do is I take my computer to her house and we have dinner and then I work and she marks. So this is probably what I'll do on the 11th. So if you get yours in, I probably won't get them all done in one night anyway. But I'll find out how long it stays open. And if it does stay open till later, then it doesn't matter when you hand them in. But if it doesn't, then we'll probably have to ask for official extensions. In which case, I'll give permission for everyone to be extended till the 11th. Okay.
All right. So even the 11th is awesome. It's the midweek part that's the best. Thank you so
No,
much.
I got it. I got it. So that's what I'll do. But I want to start marking on the 11th. So if at least half of you can get yours in by the 11th, then that helps me. I won't get them all marked in one night, but if at least half of you can get yours in by the 11th, then that helps me. Then I'll mark half on the 11th and half on the 12th. Cool. I think everyone's back.
Sorry, I just quickly want to ask, is the test going to be online as well? Because I see it's loaded here, under
Just there.
assignments.
Oh, sure, but I better unpublish that.
I mean, it's
Oh my
still
God.
closed, but it just shows.
Oh, okay. I just means, I was like, sure, but like letting people down, I haven't published anything. Yes, it will be, I'm 99% sure it'll be online.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure. I didn't check anything. I was just so stressed out that I'd let you guys down because I had not been, I like literally found out yesterday afternoon that I was lecturing this course. And I just went in as soon as I got access and just published everything. So I didn't even check what I'd published. So yes, if the test's there, then it's most likely going to be online. Cool. It better be online because I'm not marking papers and I'm not coming into invigilate. Cool. Okay. Where are we? PowerPoints. Right. Okay. So let's define this thing that we're studying. What is this thing that we are studying? I think I made a video. I didn't. I didn't make a video. Probably made a video. Okay. Sorry, my ex-wife is texting me. Okay. Right. Okay. So what is this thing that we're studying? This employment relations thing. Okay. So, so there's a slight difference between industrial relations, which is what it used to be called, to employment relations. Can anyone tell me what the slight nuance is in the difference between those two things? What's the nuance? What's the difference between industrial relations and employment relations? Anybody?
Can I, as the English say, give it a punt?
Yeah, please give it a punt. There's no wrong answers. I mean, there might be. Like, I mean, if you say something really dumb, then it'll be a wrong answer. But
Yeah,
like, I can't imagine you say something stupid. Yeah, go.
So my understanding is industrial psychology looks at the organization. It looks at the bigger picture. How are you running it in reference and relation to your employees and other systems that are in place, to make sure that you within the industry as an organization, as a business, how compatible are you with the globe? How compatible are you internally for you to improve your brand and your business? And then employer relations is now honing in on one of the factors. State how does the employee now in reverse impact the industry, impact the organization, and just it's more central to the human concerning the organization, whereas the other one is vice versa.
You're very difficult to hear, but you kind of spoke more around industrial psychology versus industrial relations. So yeah, so does anyone else close? Does anyone else want to give it a okay? So Ipile, do you want to give it a try?
Can you hear me?
But yeah, I can hear you. But Dilly, that wasn't a bad punt. Okay, Ipile, try, give it a try.
So I think industrial relation would be more of a broader perspective. So it looks at probably like the employees, the company from a bigger view, whereas the employment relations then looks at the people, so like the employees themselves. So I think it's more, what is it like?
Yeah.
Narrow and more employee centric than industrial, because then industrial, I think we could just use the word industry. It looks at everything.
Absolutely.
It's the bigger circle.
Nice. Okay, so employee relations is more employee centric. Okay, Lorata, did you want to give it a try, or did you put your hand up by accident?
I did. I was pretty much going to say the same thing Ebiling said, that so for me, the industrial relations focuses more on the organization and the legal framework around sort of the employment practices, whereas and the running of the industrial elements, whereas employment relations looks at it considers the employee side of things as well within that framework. So then the organization and the employees and how they relate with each other in that framework.
Nice, Lorata. Absolutely. Okay, we're all on the right track. Hayley, and then it's Boko.
I just wanted to add on to that as well. From the industrial relations, would that also then incorporate like a world view as well? So like looking at the rest of the world and what can also, be incorporated from an industrial perspective into different countries. And then from an employment, yes, similar to working with the employee within that organization, and the other organizations within the country as well, to see if it's all meeting up and linking in and they're doing the same thing.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah, in my experience of companies I've worked in, the ER or IR guys tend to work with dismissal of employees, I guess, when things have not gone necessarily right. There's a lot of talk around CCMA and disciplinary hearings and things along those lines. I assume the industrial side is the governance of that, like the laws, the Section 189s and whatever that governs the fairness principles, and the employee relations, it's maybe at a company level. I don't know, like whatever the company has in place for dismissal processes, et cetera, et cetera. So the talent acquisition side from HR is like the entry into the company, and I've always experienced these guys, IR, ER, to be the exit, and not necessarily in like a friendly way sometimes.
Yeah. So I think everybody's kind of getting into the right space. I think everyone's kind of getting the right frame of mind. So for me, it's almost even more nuanced than that. I think it's kind of that. It's almost like old school versus new school. Like, so industrial relations is almost where like, and this almost, and it also used to be called labor relations. So it's almost like where we used to see, like, and it's almost like that difference between human resources and human capital, where it's like labor used to just be labor, like that just used to be like a like a commodity in your organization. And now we are seeing it's now like the relationship between employee, employer. It's understanding that there's actually a psychological contract. It's that slight nuanced difference between this is not just part of my industry. They're not just the factory workers. Actually, these are people in my organization. These are people where I can create proper behavioral change. And so it's kind of that slightly nuanced difference between I actually can't just treat these people like commodities. These aren't just tools and parts of my factory. These are actually people, and I need to start treating them as such. And so these are people with rights, responsibilities, emotions, etc. And so that's the slight difference between industrial relations and employee relations, but also there's the bigger picture around it as well. So nobody was wrong, but there's also those slight nuances between us starting to change the language between industrial relations and employment relations, between us changing the language between human resources and human capital. And now we don't have, like, I don't know if any of you are looking on PNet and LinkedIn, we have now head of people or people managers. We don't have human capital managers anymore. We have people managers or head of people, or those are kind of the new names of roles, because we don't want people to be known as capital or resources. People aren't just resources; they're actually part of the organization. So it's that slight nuanced difference, and how we move from industrial relations to employment relations. Does that make a little bit of sense? Yes, no, maybe? And moved all the way down to the end.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so how do we move from industrial relations to employment relations? So in 1958, we defined IR within a system approach. We spoke about actors, contexts, ideology, and a body of rules. So we were very much talking about a body of rules and an ideology about people. 1958, we were coming out of the war. We were looking at now trying to rebuild. So it was sort of 10 years after the war, 15 years after the war. We were trying to rebuild. We were trying to, it was very much capitalist. And certainly in South Africa, much of our labor was just a resource. And so it was very much about how do we use the resources in our country. We were very much into mining at that point. We had our big players in South Africa were mining players. So much of our labor and the context in South Africa was very much defined by race relations. You had white monopoly capital at the top. And much of our labor force was black. There was lots of affirmative action happening, but not in the way we know it now. So our government was filled by Afrikaans, white Afrikaans people. Those were all the government jobs that were there because that was all affirmative action. So that was very much how industrial relations were formed then, and that was the context in 1958. So although Dunlop was in South Africa, that was the context within the South African market, and that was the ideology within the South African market, and there was a body of rules that governed that market. There weren't a lot of rules in terms of how we needed to treat labor within that, because labor was simply a commodity. So if this wasn't working, in the same way that you would replace a cog in your machine, you would be able to replace labor. It wasn't fair, it wasn't right. And so slowly but surely, we started to realize that we had to start to focus on processes of control and had to start regulating jobs and regulating labor as we moved on. So as the 70s moved on, we started to regulate labor and get different rules in place. Okay. We started to realize over the 70s and the 60s that once we started to understand that if people were interested in their job, then they were much better at getting involved in the process of getting that work done. So if we could align interest and work, then people would be better at getting their work done. And so that was some of the psychology coming out of the US and out of Europe, and we started to bring it into South Africa as well. And so slowly we started to bring that into South Africa, and we started to change industrial relations into employment relations. And so slowly we started to arrange the relationships into ways in which to organize and execute our work so that we could start to create productive relationships between work and businesses. So it was no longer just a cog in the machine, and we started to try and we started to understand that this wasn't just about a Henry Ford like assembly line type of relationship. And actually, if we treated our people better, we would get more work from them. Don't get me wrong, until the 90s, there still weren't a hell of a lot of rights for labor, but we started to learn there was a capitalist reason, a business related reason to treating people well, but it wasn't legal. There wasn't a legal reason to treat people well yet. But slowly we started to understand, like from a business related reason, if I treat people well, they'll behave better. And so we started to have fairness and justice in relationships. We started to understand that the way people integrate and regulate and balance and institutionalize divergent and convergent interests, all of a sudden we could get more out of people if they were happier at work. And so we started to understand that if we built better relationships between the people at work, then we changed from RR to ER, and we started to understand that it's not just about the laws that govern these relationships, but it's about the relationships between people. And that is about the broader concepts about how work gets done. Is that making sense? Do I have any questions so far? Everybody happy? Okay. Please understand that when I talk about like things like workers being cogs in machines, etc., that's not how I think. We're talking about how people thought in the 50s and 60s. Okay. I want to make that clear. I certainly don't think that way. Okay. Cool. All right. Okay, so that's pretty much the that's pretty much lecture 1 done. So really what we're talking about in lecture 1 is really just how did we move from industrial relations to employment relationships. So how did we execute work? How did we start to understand the difference between why it became important for us to why did it become important for us to start to understand that we can't just have a Henry Ford type assembly line? Why was it important for us to start to create meaningful work for people? Because the more meaning that we attach to work, the more fairness and justice we had in work relationships, the more people wanted to work. And so slowly but surely, we weren't quite at the psychological contract yet. We weren't quite at Simon Sinek's why yet. But but we certainly were starting to understand that if people were happier at work, they would be more likely to be more productive. Okay, so we were starting to move during the 70s, the late 70s, to from industrial relations to employee relations. Okay, and that's lecture 1 done. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the industrial relations system. Okay, so understanding how we can understand conflict in the industrial relations system. Okay, so this talks about what's in the textbook. We don't have to worry too much about what's in the textbook. We're now just going to look at some theoretical perspectives. Okay, so this is now where we're going to start to look at different perspectives within the employee relations field. So this is where we're going to talk about, I spoke about earlier, the unitarist, the pluralist, and the radical perspective towards how we look at employee relations. Okay. So I spoke earlier of Dunlop, and Dunlop in 1958 said that industrial relations, so now we're still talking about industrial relations, he said that industrial relations is comprised of actors, so people, okay, managers, workers, and government agencies, okay, that are in certain contexts, okay. So in other words, we're in a market, we have a certain distributional power, within a certain ideology, and that are in a certain body of rules. Okay, so there's managers and workers that work within a certain business, that work within a certain ideology, and they have to work within a certain body of rules. So that's what Dunlop said. That's what industrial relations is. Okay, that's how he defined it. Okay, and he said if we understand that, then we can understand what industrial relations is. Okay. Any questions so far? Do we understand what he's talking about here? Do you understand it's very simple. So the way he explains it, he's basically saying there's people, they work in a context, that context comes within a certain way of thinking, and that way of thinking has to operate within a certain body of rules.
A pretty Marxist view, basically.
Absolutely. 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 Okay. So his focus was traditionally on the conflict regulatory dimension. So he was very like, how do we manage conflict? Because he said if there's people, there's going to be conflict. Okay, and so it was very much on how do we create rules and how do we control control processes in this employment context. Okay, so if there's going to be a work context, there's going to be conflict. So how do we prevent that conflict? Let's create rules and processes so that we can prevent conflict as much as possible. Okay. Does that sort of, we're starting to make sense? Okay. So, and that's pretty much how we had work for the 40 years from 1945 all the way up to the 1990s. So, and that's why, like my parents certainly, and anyone who's my age, so anyone who's like 40 and older, or anyone who's 40 and older, like our parents like don't get it. Like if you come into my office now, like you'll see like we've got, like we walk in, there's skateboards, you can skate from one place to another, there's a pool table, there's bright lights. One of the mottos for so we work in a collab and there's 4 or 5 companies. One of the companies, one of their values is get shit done, and they've posted on the wall as you walk in. There's, and my dad like can't get that. Like he doesn't understand how we go to work in jeans. Like it's completely like his mind is blown when we tell him stuff like that. So that he's really struggling. And like he doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand like how like some days I work from home and some days I work not at home. Like so COVID helped him, but certainly before COVID, like he didn't understand any of that stuff. Like he's like, what do you mean? Like, and sometimes I talk to my staff and like we laugh and we joke, and he doesn't get that because much of my dad's work experience was prior to 1990. a lot of his growing up was prior to 1990. And so he was very much in this process of conflict resolution, of work process. This is how you do something. This is how you finish it. This is how, like a lot of his growing up was in that. Sure, he worked also from after 1990. He worked all the way up until 2020, pretty much. But the first 20 to 30 years of his growing up in the work life was in this very regulated, life. And so he doesn't understand how the working experience is now. But for a lot of us who are sort of older millennials, Gen Xers, we've grown up in like the field of understanding like a little bit of that structure and a little bit of this new world of work. And then for the Gen Zs in this group, if there are any, they're like, I don't understand any of that structure. Why do we need structure at all? Like, why do I ever have to go into an office? Like, what is an office? I don't understand. What is the point of an office at all? And so it's fighting that whole idea of like working, like that's like trying to make the connection between the Gen X's and the Gen Z's. And I feel like a boomer when I talk to Gen Z's sometimes. I'm like, guys, you have to come into an office at some point. And they're like, I don't understand why. Like, because I want to see you. And they're like, why do you want to see me? I do my work. Like, just because I said so. Because I'm your boss. And that's what I said. And they're like, they don't get it. And it's like, yeah, I feel very much like a boomer sometimes. And sometimes I can hear them going, okay, boomer. Sometimes when I'm talking to them. And I'm like, I'm not a boomer, I'm a Gen X. Just listen to me. Do what I say. But that's the difference between this 1990s, with this 19 sort of the prior to 1990s way of working. Okay. So can we understand that difference between creating all those processes and that to try and avoid conflict, and now how the pendulum has completely swung into employment relations and having almost no structure in the workplace? Can everyone see that? Can we see how that works? Any questions, comments about that? Dagan, your hands up.
I just wanted to ask, so this also speaks to like how to create a supportive work environment and those kinds of things as well.
Absolutely. So we've gone from the only reason why I'm creating processes is to prevent conflict, to employee relations, where now I want to create a supportive work environment where it's not just about preventing conflict. It's about making people happy at work, changing behavior. I want to have employee wellness programs. I want to have places where if people are happy, if I'm creating a supportive work environment, then it's less likely that I'm going to have. So I always told my staff that my job as an HR manager and their job as BPs was to put the RR team out of work, or the industrial or the ER team out of work. That was so if my BPs were doing their job well, we would never have a need for a discipline team. Obviously that's ideal and that's not true and it'll never happen. But if you've got a supportive enough work environment, there should never be a need for you to have to give people warnings. There should never have to be a need, because your staff are so happy that they're never going to do the wrong thing. And that's that's where the pendulum's going to swing to. So where you've gone from we're only putting processes and structure in place to prevent people from doing the wrong thing, to we're putting processes and structures in place to create an environment that's so inviting, that's so comforting, that's so supportive that people want to do the right thing. So it's the difference between stopping you from doing the wrong thing to encouraging you to do the right thing. Can you see the difference between the two?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. Dorota?
So I'm finding that, I mean, I understand and I agree that that's exactly where we need to be shifting towards. But I see in quite a lot of organizations, especially your big, institutions, there's a lot of talk and kind of pretense around, that's where we are. We're all about the employees. We care about your wellness. We want to support you, blah, blah, blah. but in actual fact, like what is actually being done, the processes that are in place, the systems that are in place are still very much industrial relations. And it's kind of disheartening where you kind of think that you've got things going one way when in actual fact behind the scenes it's another. And I just want to get your perspective on what it takes for an organization to make that change and be genuine about it.
So I'll tell you what, the way I always saw it when I was an exec at my last business is that you've got, so let's say you've got your CEO. Let's say he's a good guy. Let's say he's neutral. And that's your best bet. The best bet is that he's neutral and that like he's a good guy and he wants to do the right thing for the people. Okay. And do you remember when we were little, you always used to see those cartoons where the guy had like a devil on his one shoulder and an angel on the other shoulder. Remember those cartoons when we were little?
Yep.
Okay. So now what happens is on his one shoulder, he's got HR going, we need to do stuff for the people, we need to do this, it's going to be awesome, blah, blah, blah. And then on his other shoulder, he's got the CFO going, have you any idea how much it's going to cost us? Like, there's no ways we can't afford to do this, whatever. And that's what happens, is that every time, like, so you want to do all these cool things and so HR can show you how much, and I still use HR because I'm Gen X. So like, I'm not going to say like people focus and whatever these newfangled words are because I'm Gen X, I'm old, I'm sorry, just deal with it. So HR is going to come in and they're going to say like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is going to be your ROI. This is how it's cool. This is what you're going to do. This is blah, blah, blah. And he like sees it and he's like, that's cool. That's awesome. And then it goes to budgets. And the first place they always cut budgets from is HR and marketing. Because as much as you can see the ROI, as much as you can see what it's, especially in these times and especially since 2020. That's where we've cut budgets from. So
people are party poopers.
Yeah, and I get it, and it's because it's easy, it's an easy place to cut budget from. It's an easy place to cut budget from. So it's like I want to do it, like the will is there, but the money's not always there. And I get it and I want to do it and it's cool, but when like it's the difference between like the shareholders and getting everyone a water bottle, they're like, oh, a water bottle doesn't mean anything. But it's like, it's not about the water bottle. It's about when I come and walk around and give you the water bottle. It's what I see your hand, I'm going to get you in a second. It's about when I come around and I give you the water bottle, it's a catalyst for a conversation. And that conversation gives me so much intelligence and it gives me so much information. And that's actually, I'll give you one day I'll tell you the story about how I got my company's name. But it gives you so much information and it gives you so much intelligence about your business. And that short conversation is the difference between us losing people or having bad morale in the team. And sometimes I can't actually give you an ROI on that. I can't actually give you a number. I can't tell you how much that's going to move the needle. And finance wants me to be able to tell you how much it's going to move the needle. And I can't always tell you how much that's going to move the needle. Okay, Teboho, and then we need to move on. Yeah, Teboho?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's more what I wonder about is the measurement of this happiness we talk about for the employees, right? Because as you're saying, you want the employee to be happy. And I find most organizations will do like a survey, maybe like annually or something like that, which I don't know if it really gives a true reflection of whether people are happy. And I guess that is just what I wonder around. Is it really a measurable metric that you can say my people are happy? Because I suppose if you did that survey like the day before or like before the bonus time, you'd get a different answer than you would if you did it after the bonus time, kind of thing, right?
100%.
So there's all that.
It's a dipstick. 100%. It's absolutely a dipstick. Absolutely a dipstick. Cool. Okay. So okay. So what are some of the theoretical perspectives? I'm not even going to read it because it's got a spelling error in it and I'm too embarrassed to read it. And it's from Henry Ford, and I don't really want to take too much value on what Henry Ford talks about. So let's talk about these theoretical perspectives. Okay, but like Henry Ford made people cogs in his machine. So I'm not going to take too much, I'm going to put too much value on what Henry Ford says about people. All right. So so the theoretical perspectives we want to talk about. The first one is a unitarist perspective. Okay. So this was a scientific theory. It spoke about human relations theory and it spoke about human resource management. Okay. So that was unitarist. It said it's scientific, people are part of a scientific theory, it's human relations, and very much about human resource management. So humans are part of the resources of your organization, and everything is scientific. Okay. It didn't speak it was basically very scientific. It's very much the unitarist theory, and we'll go through each of these theories in detail, so don't panic. But it's very much about what you put in is what you get out. It believed that if you so I had a manager once who said humans, like in this organization, we think humans are like slot machines. The more money we put into them, the more we get out of them, and that's not how people work. And that was very much a unitarist perspective. Okay. The pluralist perspective sees organizations as complex social constructions that are made up of different interest groups. Management and employees are two of these such groups, and because of the very nature of the factory system, because of the very nature of the system in which we work, they're going to subscribe to two different ways of thinking. Okay. They're going to have different values. So your managers are going to have different values to your factory workers. Your factory workers are going to have different values to your accountants. You're going to have different values to your guys in the finance team, to your guys in your collections team, to whatever. Okay, so everybody's going to have different values and different objectives and different ways of thinking. And so we have to, and it's a whole system, and we have to work together as to how this whole system works together. Okay, and then the radical perspective, these are much more communist, feminist theories. This is very lefty. My brother calls me a bleeding heart lefty, and every day we have a fight and an argument. And I don't know if any of you do Wordle, but yesterday Wordle's word of the day was lefty. And my brother was like, he just said, as he did his Wordle, he was like, for sakes, you should have a Wordle today. Because every day we fight about. So all we've been fighting about over the last 2 weeks is Charlie Kirk, because because he tells me I'm a bleeding heart lefty. And I call him a right-wing racist. And actually, neither of us are either. We're both probably quite centrist, but it's just fun to fight with your siblings. But yeah, so if my brother was watching me do this lecture, he's like, oh, yeah, that's where you fit in, the Marxist feminist theory. But yeah, so that's kind of where that theory fits in. So let's go into each of those. So what is the unitarist perspective? The unitarist perspective, and please stop me, hey, put your hands up, stop me if you need questions, if I'm speaking too fast. The unitarist perspective, I thought it said we're at 8:10 already. I was like, oh my God, I kept you guys. I had a little heart attack. Let me just get out of my panic attack. Okay. The unitarist perspective, it says that the organization is an integrated group of people, okay, that has an authority structure, that has common values, interests, and purpose. Okay. So it says that because we all work in this organization, we all have one common purpose. Okay. It says that management has a legitimate authority and right to manage its people, and therefore it's expected to provide appropriate leadership. Okay, so we are an organization, we all work together, we're all working towards a common goal. And because we're all working towards a common goal, management has a right to manage me, and it's got a right to give me leadership. Okay, so far that sounds great. This is where we start to get a bit dodgy. Now it's saying conflict is regarded as unnecessary. because because employees are expected to be loyal to management and their organization. Now we're starting to sound a little bit niggerish. Okay. Now we're starting to wonder how many of us are wearing red caps. Okay. And are going to get fired because we said the wrong thing. Okay. So in an organization like this, the underlying assumption is that people are expected to work in basic harmony and conflict is undesirable and a result of miscommunication. In these organizations, trade unions are regarded as unnecessary and dysfunctional, and there's no need for any outside body to intrude on the employment relationship. I'm okay with that in some respects, okay? Because I'm okay with us being able to manage conflict internally, but this is saying that conflict is unnecessary. What are our thoughts on conflict? What are our thoughts on conflict? Is conflict necessary in an organization? Or do we want our organization to work in complete harmony? Dagan? If I say your name wrong, just shout at me.
No, you're saying it right.
Yeah?
I would say it is something unnecessary, but I think when different people believe in something different so strongly, sometimes it just occurs on its own.
Okay.
So I feel like it is unnecessary, but sometimes it is unavoidable as well.
Okay, Hayley?
I'm gonna say it's needed.
Why is conflict needed?
So I'm going to go into the psychology part of it. I feel that it is needed because it teaches both parties about themselves and how to deal with it going forward.
Okay. What else is conflict
I
needed?
I just wanted to add on that.
Yeah.
Oh, I can speak. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Oh. So
no.
I was
who's
saying
speaking?
that.
Sorry, I thought it was McCarthy speaking. Who's speaking?
No, it's not.
What's your name? Sorry. Speak.
Okay, yeah.
Mariah. Okay.
Uriah. But yeah.
Uriah, speak. Yeah.
I was saying that just based off just carrying it from the other two my other two colleagues that said that basically conflict is kind of inevitable, I believe, because we do have different beliefs and values and different ways of doing things. And I feel like it will always just clash in some kind of way. And at some point while we're working, it is going to clash. But like Hayley said, it's also necessary because I feel like it also helps to build a sense of communication and working around conflict as well. And yeah, I feel like it also helps to strengthen relationships between colleagues. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
So I was gonna say that conflict is needed, and I think it can be healthy if it's worked out well, because I think it also helps with creativity rather, right? So if I see something differently and you see something differently, then we can come up with a new solution that meets both of us. So I think it is necessary. Yeah.
100%. So conflict doesn't necessarily have to be bad. So I can hear what Dagan's saying is we don't want conflict because we don't want unnecessary disharmony in the workplace. So that I can hear, and I hear that point. But what the rest of us are saying to a point is that conflict can be good because it can help us strengthen ourselves and help us to understand how to negotiate, how to come up with ways of being able to work around conflicts. And then what Mahlatsi said is very important, saying, if you and I both have a different idea about how to solve a problem, neither of those ideas is necessarily right or wrong. But we can't both have an idea. One of us has to win, or there's bits of my idea and bits of your idea that could be right. And it's only through some kind of conflict. Conflict doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but it's only through some kind of negotiation, which is conflictual. It doesn't have to be shouting at each other. Conflict doesn't mean shouting. It just means there's only through some kind of conflict, which could be a negotiation, it could be through a discussion, that through that conflict that we come to some kind of compromise and we get to the solution. So there's not ever going to be, unless we are the Stepford wives, or unless we are MAGA and we just say yes sir, and we get fired if we say something bad against some guy who's been shot and all he is a podcaster. Like, we can't have that. That's not healthy. Okay, what's happening in America right now, like, is not healthy. That's not healthy. No matter which side of the divide you belong, that's not healthy. Okay, we can't get fired for stating our opinion. Neither can we get shot for stating our opinion. Okay, neither of those things are healthy. Okay, like, we shouldn't be shot for stating our opinion, and we shouldn't be fired for stating an opposite opinion. Neither of those things are healthy. And so being able to state my opinion without being shot for it, without being fired for it, but being able to say, I feel free enough to state my opinion, and knowing that I might be wrong, or somebody else is going to have a different opinion, and that's going to be okay in this organization, that brings up conflict, and that's okay. Conflict is okay in this organization. That's the sign of a healthy organization. Okay. Siboko?
Yeah, thank you for that perspective. I think when you first introduced the topic, I was thinking more along the performance of the company, right? Because I guess culturally, I guess amongst how the employees relate, I definitely agree that it's not ideal to have conflict. But when you're looking at, let's say, somebody who isn't maybe meeting their targets, and maybe you're a leader who needs to talk to a direct report, and you need to have I guess it's a disciplinarian kind of conversation with them. That person might take that as conflict-ish in a way, I guess. And I guess in some places, it's like, if you don't meet the target, you actually can't stay there anymore, kind of thing. So I guess there is also that element of conflict that's almost like, I don't even know if it's just conversational, but it has consequences, I guess, and it stems from performance. So I guess that's another one, maybe that's like unavoidable, I guess.
100%. 100%. Yeah. 100%. So even that conflict needs to happen. Like, we can't allow that, like, in the interest of keeping the peace, we allow somebody to not perform. In the interest of keeping the peace, we allow a manager to not treat us well. In the interest of we can't have peace. We can't have peace at the expense of the organization not performing. We can't have peace at the expense of people being unhappy. We can't have peace at the expense of things that are more important than peace. So we have to have conflict is important if it means that it's growth. Like, if we think about, so if I think about a tree, how does a tree grow? It conflicts with the ground in order to grow. And so growth means conflict. And so the unitarist perspective sounds amazing, sounds great. And there are parts of this unitarist perspective that are great, because we are an integrated group of people that have a unified authority, but when I start to get here that conflict is regarded as unnecessary, all of a sudden I'm seeing an orange dude with dodgy hair and bruises on his hand who's telling me that I'm not allowed to say things and I'm going to get fired if I say them. Or I'm seeing, like, a short little Korean guy, like, or a guy with no shirt riding a horse. Like, all of a sudden I'm starting to see, all of a sudden I'm seeing dictatorship. Like, and that's slightly different to like, this sounds lovely. Yay, everyone's lovely. This sounds amazing. We've got this unified perspective. Oh shit, I'm not allowed to say anything that's against this. Okay, well, hang on. This is different to what this sounds like. Okay. All of a sudden I'm hearing, oh wait, even if this guy's a pedophile, I'm not allowed to say anything against it. I'm still going to trust in him. Can you see? Can you see the difference? Can you see the difference between like this is great in harmony, but okay, and that's the slight difference. Okay, between a unitrust, between having harmony in an organization, and this is great, and we all believe in one thing. So having a great unified culture is important in an organization. But when that unified, great, important culture comes at the expense of performance, and I'm not allowed to ever say anything against the culture, that's when I go from culture to cult. And that's the difference. And the unitrist perspective almost crosses the line, kind of does cross the line to this is now a dictatorship. Okay. And that's what we need to be careful of. Okay. So that's Henry Ford when he's saying you can hardly have, there's a spelling error in there. So that's where, and Henry Ford says you can hardly have too much harmony in the business. Please excuse the spelling error. It's killing me. I was an English teacher and I never saw it until now. I literally just copied and pasted it. The only harmonious organization that is worth anything is an organization in which all its members are bent on one main purpose. Now remember, Henry Ford was the guy who said you can have any color car as long as it's, does anyone know the quote? You can have any color car as long as it's
Black.
black. That's it. That was his quote. So he was great with imagination, okay, and he was great with listening to other people's opinions. Okay, I'm clearly being sarcastic. All right, so this was his principle. He's like, you can hardly have too much harmony in a business. The only harmonious organization that is worth anything in an organization is one in which all its members are bent on the one main purpose, to get along toward the objective. A common purpose, honestly believed in, is sincerely desired. That is the great harmonizing principle. Now, that sounds lovely until you realize that Henry Ford was the guy who created the assembly line, where he created like a system where it was one guy's job to just turn a screw every day. And that guy came in, and for 8 hours a day, all that guy did was turn a screw, turn a screw, turn a screw, turn a screw for 8 hours a day. And he never ever saw the full car being built. Imagine that being your job for 8 hours a day. You just turn thousands and thousands and thousands of screws. And you never ever saw where that screw fits in the big picture. Imagine how disheartening that is. And you never got to question, where does the screw fit in? What if instead of turning screws, I do 5 screws at once? And what if you're not allowed to ever question that? Okay. Right, so what does the pluralist perspective say? The pluralist perspective says we are going to be slightly longer tonight because we did the introduction, okay? So what does the pluralist perspective say? The pluralist perspective says that organizations are coalitions of individuals and groups with diverse objectives, values, and interests, okay? So the pluralist perspective says, listen, this organization has got multitudes of people, okay? We're coming together. There's people that have got different perspectives, different ideas, different races, genders, cultures, whatever. Okay, and we're all going to come together. Each person that comes here is going to have their own objectives and interests. All right. And each of them is going to compete for leadership, loyalty, and authority. Okay. And because of that, there's going to be a permanent state of tension. Okay. And because there's that permanent state of tension, there's going to be conflict. But that conflict isn't necessarily bad, okay? Because that conflict is going to cause us to be our best, okay? Because in that conflict, I'm going to compete for resources, and in that competition for resources, that's going to help me to be my best, okay? And it means that we're mutually dependent on each other. Okay. And that conflict is not so fundamental that it means that we're going to fail to cooperate, because we're mutually dependent on each other. And despite all of that conflict, there is still a common goal. Okay. And because of that common goal, we can still regulate the employment relationship and institutionalize the conflicts and institutionalize the common goal and create some processes around it to try and prevent too much conflict from happening. So even though we're all so different and crazy and eclectic and whatever we are, if we create some process around it, if we create some structure around it, we'll be able to take all these different ideas, all these different values and interests, bring them together and allow there to be some kind of growth towards a common goal. And that healthy tension will allow us to be our best and to grow towards that common goal. Does the pluralist perspective make sense to you? Any questions on the pluralist perspective so far? Okay, let's go here. If I'm boring you or you're exhausted because we are now already been talking for an hour, just tell me to shut up. But I don't want to take too much of a break because we have got like 4 slides left. Okay. So if I look at the pluralist perspective from a massive socioeconomic perspective, okay, so I'm not just now looking at I'm not now just looking at an organization. I'm looking at all the different things that impact an organization. Okay, so I say that if I look at I say that there's business, okay, and business is affected by Business Unity South Africa, okay, so which is an organization that looks at all businesses to come together. Then there's labor, and labor has CODESA. Labor's got the National Unity of the National Council of Trade Unions. There's the Federation of Unions in South Africa. So labor's got all of those people that can help them. Then there's the government, which has got the Department of Labor, the Departments of Trade and Industry, the Departments of Public Works, National Treasury, and other departments. And then there's communities. Okay, so then there's a whole bunch of civil institutions that help, that are part of things that are part of these civil institutions that are part of the community that also impacts labor and the relationships between business and labor. Okay, so really what we're looking at is this relationship between governments, labor. Remember that structure we looked at right in the beginning where we said there's government, there's employees, employers, and then there's customers and clients. So this is really what we're looking at here. That is that structure, and that's part of this pluralist perspective. Okay, where it says we've got trade and industry, we've got people that come together, and so this is really what NEDLAC is looking at. This kind of the structure of all these different people that come together. Okay, so you don't have to know this for anything. It's just an interesting thing for you to have knowledge of how all these different people come together, and that's really just the pluralist perspective of how it comes together and how we have all these, and how these different structures can regulate the relationship between business and labor. Okay, does everyone understand the pluralist perspective? Any questions on the pluralist perspective?
Yes, I've got a question. I don't know if it's a comment or a question. I've just noted that in our discussion so far, we haven't talked about what are they called? The unions, right?
Yeah.
Are they a part of this conversation? Is it still coming, or is it something that sits outside of this framework?
No, we can talk about it now. So really, we're really just looking at a theoretical perspective now. So in the unitarist perspective, there would be no room for unions. Probably in the radicalist perspective, yes. Okay, sorry, Loretta, I'll put it into presentation mode in a second. I just wanted to see you guys. I'll put it into presentation mode now. In the unitarist perspective, there's absolutely no room for unions. Unions wouldn't have any room. In a pluralist perspective, there's probably some room for unions, but because of the internal structures in the organization, there's enough room for conversation, etc., where there's like you could have unions, you wouldn't necessarily have to have unions, okay? But when we get to the radical perspective, that's where we're probably going to have most likely space for unions.
Yes,
So certainly, like here, where we're talking about regulating this relationship and institutionalizing conflict, that there could be a space for unions, and certainly, like in the more industrial, like traditionally industrial industries, like mining, mechanical industries, engineering industries, the metal industries, all of those, there certainly are those places are more regulated and have bargaining councils and all of those things. So there is space for unions there. But there's certainly, from a pluralist perspective, the perspective of leadership in those industries, and certainly my perspective has always been that if you need a third party to talk to your own staff, then you failed as leadership. And that's certainly a pluralist perspective.
Okay, thanks so much.
Does that make sense, folks? Okay, cool.
So what's that?
Okay, cool. Okay, so then we get to the radical perspective. Okay, now the radical perspective, this is related very much to Marxist thinking and reflects a class conflict worldview. Okay, so here is where we're looking at where the radical perspective is the belief that workers are oppressed for the sake of capitalist interests. Okay, and there's definitely an idea that there's the emphasis on the class struggle between the haves and the have-nots. Okay, have we moved out of this in South Africa? And have we moved out of this belief in South Africa? Have we moved out of this place in South Africa where there is a class struggle in South Africa? Absolutely, yes. We certainly do not have a class struggle in South Africa. There's certainly very much equality in South Africa. No. So it's one of the highest Gini coefficients in the world. Do we know? So if you guys don't know what the Gini coefficient is, the Gini coefficient is the difference between maybe I am a lefty. Maybe my brother's right. The Gini coefficient is the difference, is the ratio between the rich and the poor. And the higher your Gini coefficient is, the less stable your country is. So in a country like Australia, and I'm going to vomit when I say Australia, because the only reason why Australia's Gini coefficient is low is because they just kill their natural people. So let's rather not use Australia. Let's use a country like Norway. In a country like Norway, where it's a socialist country, and they haven't done that by killing their natural people. In a country like Norway, their Gini coefficient is very low. So the difference between their rich and their poor is so low that it's hardly even noticeable. So you don't get very many very, very rich people in Norway, but you also don't get very many very, very poor people in Norway. And so the stability of a country like Norway or Sweden or any of those countries, the stability of a country like that is very high, because there are lots and lots of middle-class people, okay? And so middle-class people are the people that keep your country working, that keep your country going. Because when there's very, very rich people, those people don't want to work. They want to go sit on their yachts and play golf and drink Prosecco and whatever, okay? They want to go drink champagne, and I don't know what rich people do. I'm not a rich person. All right. If there's very, very poor people, you would think those people would want to work, but they can't work because they don't have access to work. Okay, you can't take a person who's very, very poor and remove him out of poverty by putting him into a job because he doesn't have access to the internet. He doesn't have a car. He doesn't have a driver's license. He doesn't necessarily have an education. He doesn't have, so we're taking people out of poverty and we're saying, okay, let's put them into learnerships. All we're doing is creating serial learners in learnerships because even in the learnerships, they're not necessarily learning marketable skills. So you want to take a guy out of a learnership and put him into a job. Now, okay, he doesn't actually have Excel skills in that learnership. He doesn't actually can't go onto the internet to go find a job because he doesn't have access to the internet. He doesn't know enough about Excel after a year in that learnership to actually go and get into a job and learn Excel. He doesn't have the ability to work in a workplace and speak like the people speak in that place and talk the talk and walk the walk, and they don't have marketable skills even once we've moved them out of the learnership. And so we've got a whole lot of people who need to work and who don't have access to work. We've got a whole lot of people who have marketable skills but don't want to work. And so in the middle, we've got this tiny middle class who are trying to keep the economy going. And so we say we've got this huge unemployment, but we've got a whole lot of people who can work and can't, we've got all these jobs but no one wants to work. No, we've got a whole lot of people who can't work. And so we've got this tiny, tiny middle class who's trying to keep this country going. And that's what a high Gini coefficient does. It says that this country has lots and lots of poor people who can't work, lots and lots of rich people who don't want to work, and a tiny middle class. And so that's what this class conflict worldview does. And so the more we keep and so what happens is that's why we can have a ridiculous minimum wage of 28 Rand per hour. Because people will work for nothing. That's why we do have a problem of immigration, of illegal immigration, because South Africans won't work for that, and so other people will come in and say, "I'll work for that," and that's what's happening. And so we've got this problem that keeps perpetuating itself in this country, and so we need to make sure that, and so the workers, we have this huge class conflict, and that's why we have trade unions who are saying we need to speak on behalf of the workers. And these guys are saying, well, I've got all the power because I can just fire someone because there's another 3 people behind them who want the work. And these people are saying, but I've got the skills. And so we've got this huge conflict between the classes. And so that's the Marxist thinking, is that there's a class conflict, and it's class conflict worldview, and that everybody should be equal. And that's why you've got guys like Julius Malema and the EFF saying we need to nationalize everything so that we can create more regulations around those things, which is good in theory. It's good in theory, because if we do nationalize everything, and we can create regulations around all of our state-owned enterprises, then we can create more jobs. But history has shown us that a lot of our state-owned enterprises have failed. Transnet has failed, SAA has failed, SABC has failed, Post Office has failed. And so that's why there's a huge fight not to have not to nationalize all of our state-owned enterprises, not to nationalize a lot of these things. And so that's where this radical perspective comes in. Okay, so and so that's really where we're looking at this. That's what the radical perspective is talking about. And for this here, trade unions become unavoidable because it's a response to capitalism, because the worker becomes voiceless, and so he needs a trade union in order to be able to have a voice for him and to create a voice for him. Cool. Does that kind of answer your question, Tebogo?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Cool. Is that so? Does everyone understand? We'll get to the last slide or to the next couple of slides in a second. But does everyone understand the radical view of the workplace? How it's this complete difference between, I went off the tracks with the Gini coefficient, but understanding why that's so important in South Africa and why South Africa's probably never going to, not for a long time, get out of the radical view of the workplace. For a long time, we're not going to get out of there. And why we're going to have this idea of needing trade unions for a long time until we get to a place where we can have more equality and better sustainability. We're not going to get out of a place where we need trade unions, where we need to look after our workers. We're not going to get out of that place until we get more sustainability in our country. Any questions or comments? Like if I say anything that's like out of line or that offends you or that doesn't sit right with you, just shout at me, because this stuff is political. So I'm gonna say stuff that's political, but sometimes I'm gonna say stuff that's political in order to, like, because I want to create conflict, because I want to have a conversation. So don't just say, you're that chick, like she said that huge political thing. Like, so shout at me. I want to create conversation. Okay. I know it's 7:45 and you're like, oh my gosh, is she still talking? So, but like the whole point is I want to create conversation. So, okay. Okay, so in summary, the unitarist perspective assumes that we're going to cooperate because we all have common interests and we all like rah going for the leaders, and it's almost like a dictatorship. The pluralist perspective says that we've all got diverse interests, we want to work together, and that those diverse interests create a healthy tension for us to be able to work together. And the radical perspective says that there's going to be inherent conflicts, and we need systemic change in order to address power imbalances. Okay. Right. Okay. So those are the three different leadership perspectives. Okay. So what I want to look at here quickly is just how actually, despite all of those different things, despite all of those different perspectives, we can't have one without the other. When there was that show with the father from Modern Family called, I can't remember what the show was called, but he used to have a song, Love and Marriage, Love. And then it was that you can't have one without the other. Okay? And that's what employers and employees can't exist without each other. Okay? So I'm just showing you how old I actually am. So you can't have one without the other. You can't have employers and employees. I need to go back into presentation mode. Sorry. Let's just deal with it. Okay. So, oh, why are you talking? Don't talk. Don't talk. No, shut up. I don't want him to talk. I'm going to do the talking. Okay. So, we need to understand that we can't have employers without employees, and we can't have employees without employers. We're interdependent on each other. So as much as in a unitarist perspective, the employer thinks that he is a dictator and he can just tell his employees what to do. If the mega guys ever stand up and say, listen, Donald, we're done, and they stop voting for him, like, Donald will be screwed. If employees in a unitarist perspective ever say, listen, we're walking out, like, no matter how much they fear, the employer will be screwed. In the same way that if an employer ever walks away from that, the employees will be screwed. there's an interdependence on employers and employees. Even in a pluralist perspective, that interdependence is much clearer because they work together, but there is an interdependence there. And even though it's shoved down their throats in a Marxist perspective, in the Marxist perspective, there's an interdependence between employers and employees. Okay. And so what is that interdependence? Well, for employees, they need their remuneration, they need benefits, they need better working conditions. And in return, the employer gets return on investment, productivity, and efficiency. And all of that will lead to wealth and access to resources on both sides. So the harder employees work, the harder the employer works. I'm sure you've all heard that story where one day the manager, the CEO arrives at work in this lacquer Merc, I don't know, fancy cars. I told you I'm not rich. But he gets to work in this nice silver Merc and he parks it in front of the driveway. And as he gets in, one of his employees is standing there. He says, "Yo, boss, that's a nice car." He says, "Yes. And if you work really hard, then next year I'll be able to get another one." You know that story, eh? Okay. Cool. So we're almost done, I promise. We've got 2 slides left. So corporatism. So what is corporatism? So corporatism is really just an extension of pluralism. Okay. And it starts now to talk about it's talking about primary parties, management and labor. Okay. And it's saying that we're not viewed as interacting on a purely competitive basis, but actually that we're interdependent on each other. We need each other. Okay. And actually that there's a third party that works with us. And that third party is the state. Okay. And it says that that we actually need to work towards a consensus rather than trying to create adversarial relations. Because actually, if we're all working together, we can work towards a common goal, even though we have different values and even though we have different needs in this relationship. We actually don't have different needs, because if I'm going to make money, if my boss wants to make money, then I can share in his profits. And the state just wants us to be able to work together, because the more money I make, the higher the state's GDP. So actually, we all just want to work together to make money. And conflict and common ground are blended together to become mutually gainful. And the long-term view is favored over the short-term win-lose modes of interaction. So yes, short-term we might fight because I don't want to work overtime and you want me to work overtime. But actually, if I work a little bit of overtime, then in the long term, this is going to be better for all of us. And so we stop fighting over the small little things because we all take a longer term view of what's better for all of us in the long run. And so that's corporatism. And state corporatism says, how do we start moving together? And the state moves from working into a paternalistic. So the state says, I'm no longer a paternal view. I'm no longer a father figure of you. Okay. And I actually start to move next to you. Okay. And I start working with organizations to help you to reach this common goal. Okay. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? Are we kind of in a space where we're making sense? I'm definitely showing my age. Says Loretta. All right. Okay, guys. I know that we were 20 minutes longer than I said we were going to be, but we did go through a hell of a lot tonight. And we're not going to, so we went through also like the structure of the course and the assignments. So obviously we're not going to do that in the next section. You all have my phone number now. It's in the lecture notes. I've attached it to this meeting request. I've attached the slides to the meeting request. It's also on Ulwazi. my phone number is on Ulwazi, so you're welcome to contact me by email or phone number if you have any questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this lecture. Thank you for the participation. And thank you that there were so many of you that joined tonight. I do see there were some drop-offs, but at one stage we had 31 people online, which is really cool. So Lorato, yeah, what's up?
Just a quick one, Janine. Are the classes going to be permanently online, or are we going to have a hybrid system?
So
By the way,
what
I'm the
I'll
party pooper.
yes, so
Yeah.
that's what I'll do. So I did do a poll, but I did a poll early on the WhatsApp group. At that stage, it was unanimous that everybody wanted it online. I'll do a poll again and see how everyone feels. And see how everyone feels. And we'll just so we'll do the poll and just see how everyone feels. And we'll go from there. So we'll just leave it to the class. Ipeleng. Ipeleng?
You said that. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear you? I can't hear
I
you
just
now.
wanted. Sorry, I just wanted to double check. You said that you will be moving the sit down test to an online, or is that still something that's in the works?
Oh, I don't know about that test. So let me find out about that test. I am meeting with Dr. Previn on Friday. He said Friday at 1, but I have to pick up my kid at that time. So I just want to, I'll work that out. As soon as I know more about the test, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah, like I said, guys, I literally found out yesterday that I was lecturing this course. So as soon as I know more about everything, I will give you details about everything as soon as I know more. Cool. Yeah, so you are welcome to text me, email me at any time, and I will try and get hold of you. Oh, shame, Uriah keeps disappearing. I will email you back as soon as I can. I may not get back to you as soon as you email me, but I'm usually quite quick on WhatsApp and email. And so you're welcome to email me on my personal email, text me on my personal phone. I have absolutely no issues with that. This is a WITS Plus course. This is not a WITS normal course. So I'd much rather you go through my personal phone, not Ulwazi. I'm not going to be checking Ulwazi all the time. So rather email me and phone me on my personal phone and my personal email. That's easier for me. It's easier for you guys. Cool. So we won't have a lecture next week. Please go remember where you come from next week. And then the week after that, we'll have another lecture. And we'll decide whether it's going to be hybrid or online. And then from there, we'll go. Cool. Any last questions before we close off? Cool. Guys, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's Paul. You want to say something?
No, I was going to say thank you. Good night.
Okay, cool. Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys did too. And I hope you learned a lot.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Good night.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.